Okay, so now we're in part 3. We're going to go over the most important part. Okay, so if you are kind of dazing off in these videos, this is the one that you want to get some coffee, you want to focus in on, and actually practice and do as I'm talking with you. Okay, we're going to talk about breathing. So like I said in the previous videos, breathing is so important in this chapter. It's going to support our core and pelvic floor health long term, which it might kind of blow your mind that even just breathing helps support our core, but it is a huge part of keeping those muscles functioning well together as a unit. So I talked about the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, those lower back muscles, and then the transverse abdominis. And we're going to talk about how all those work together and how we can actually breathe in a way that supports each of those individual parts as a whole. Okay, so the first thing is whenever you take a big inhale, your rib cage expands. Remember I talked about the diaphragm actually descends into the core cavity. Now, if it just descends into the core, we talked about, air pressure in the core. Where is all that pressure going to go if we don't respond? Well, it's going to go out against the abdominal wall and it's going to go down into the pelvic floor. So what we want to do instead is relax the belly and relax the pelvic floor. So when we relax the pelvic floor, it kind of feels like the pelvic floor is descending downward a little bit. Now we're not pressing down on it. So if you feel like you're trying to relax your pelvic floor and instead you're pressing down, like you're trying to bear down or like push a poop out or anything like that, that's not what I'm talking about. You're simply just letting it go. And it should have a natural kind of descend without us having to push, okay? Now what that does is that's going to make space for that air pressure in our core to just maintain, which is good. That's what we want, okay? We don't want to create additional pressure that's pushing on any part of the musculature in our core. So just to review, when we take a big inhale, the diaphragm is descending, and so we want to relax the belly and we want to relax the pelvic floor so that it mimics that diaphragm and we can keep the pressure in our core nice and stable. Okay, so on the flip side, then once we exhale, that rib cage comes in and that diaphragm is coming back up. So we want the rest of the core to respond, okay? Remember, we're maintaining that pressure. So especially when we're exercising, we want to really be aware of this. If you're not really thinking about this during the day when you're sitting or driving, that's totally fine. But when we're exercising, we tend to build up a lot of extra pressure in our core unit. We tend to bear down, push out, hold our breath. If you've ever picked up something heavy and you notice that you kind of hold your breath and like grunt at the top, that's usually an overcompensation. We're building a lot of pressure in our core, and it's just not the best thing to do when you're pregnant, when you're postpartum, when you're trying to heal and work with this unit right here. Okay, so going back to exhaling, okay, we inhale, and then as we exhale, that diaphragm is descending back up, so we want the pelvic floor to respond in the same way. So what that means is we want to gently contract and lift the pelvic floor as we exhale. And then we want to bring in that transverse abdominis or slightly engage it. Now, what I really want to clarify is I don't mean I want you to suck in. So I don't want to see any like this, okay? A lot of people think that that's them engaging their transverse abdominis, but it's really not, okay? This way of breathing should be dynamic. It should be moving. You never want to be stuck in a position and holding that. We want it to continue to relax and contract and relax and contract, okay? So we want to avoid sucking in. But as you exhale, I want you to think about your air coming up and out and that belly button going in and up towards your heart, okay? When you do that, we're engaging the transverse abdominis and we're going to slightly engage our pelvic floor as well. And so it looks like the diaphragm's moving down, the pelvic floor is moving down as we inhale, then as we exhale, everything moves back up and in. So it's kind of this natural movement down and up, and we're maintaining that core pressure as we move. This is super important, again, as we exercise. So I'm going to show you these different ways of breathing, and then we're actually going to practice them in some movement. So this part of the video, I want you to engage with me. I want you to do these different exercises as we do them, okay? Just so you know, I'm about 12 weeks pregnant doing this video, so if you see a little belly, that's what we're working with here, but it's a-okay. If you are pregnant, you can definitely work on this as well, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna kind of break it up, and we're gonna start with what's called diaphragm breathing. So what we're doing with this is connecting the brain to our diaphragm. And then we're gonna build from there, okay? But this part is gonna be really simple. So on the inhale, we want you to think about opening up the rib cage like an umbrella. So it's opening up all around here, okay? Not just in the front, not just in the side, but a big opening up umbrella breath of the rib cage. And then as you exhale, we're gonna close in that umbrella. So I want you to give me about 5 breaths, thinking about using the umbrella and opening and closing the umbrella of your rib cage as you breathe. That's gonna really engage the diaphragm as we breathe. Now that we've done diaphragm breathing, we're gonna also now include the belly. So I want you to still think about opening and closing the umbrella on the inhale and the exhale, but now what we're also going to do is we're gonna relax the belly as we inhale, okay? So you're gonna let it hang out a little bit. You'll see my belly a little bit, and that's okay. We're not trying to impress anyone here. Gonna relax the belly, let it hang, and then as we exhale, we're gonna pull the belly button in and up towards our heart. So it looks like this. So I'm gonna have you give me 5 breaths, opening and closing the umbrella, and also relaxing and contracting the belly. Okay, good. The last part of this that we're gonna add in is the pelvic floor. Now, if you've never really learned how to engage or relax your pelvic floor, I'm gonna kind of tell you a little trick that you can use in your brain. Just bear with me. We're using some bathroom talk, okay? No big deal. So to relax the pelvic floor, you can think about the feeling like when you sit on a toilet and you start to pee. You're letting the stream kind of go, okay? That's relaxing the pelvic floor. You're in a relaxed position, in a relaxed state. Then as you contract the pelvic floor, you can think of the feeling like you're midstream in your pee and you want to stop. Okay, so what you want to do is it's going to feel like you're pulling your pelvic floor muscles in and up into your vagina. Now, we don't need a really strong contraction. I want it to be really gentle, and especially if you're pulling your belly button in and up, it will probably naturally happen. So you may not have to think about it a ton. But just a reminder, as we open the umbrella and we inhale, we relax the belly, we are also relaxing the pelvic floor. Then as we exhale, the umbrella is closing, we're drawing belly button in and up, we're also drawing up the pelvic floor. So I want you to give me 5 good breaths, and we're gonna tie all 3 of those parts together. Okay, so you got the breathing down. You may need to practice that a little bit. It may take a little bit for your brain to connect to when to relax, when to contract, all of those things. It may feel really counterintuitive to you, and that's okay. We're trying to rewire our brains and make it more automatic, make it more natural, but that will happen over time. So if you feel like you're still not quite getting it right now, that's okay. Just keep reminding yourself of it, keep practicing when you can. But we're going to tie this in actually to movement. Now, the way we want to do this is we always want to exhale through the exertion part of a movement, so through the working part. Or I like to say we inhale down, exhale up. So what I mean by that is coming out of the bottom of a squat, or if you're picking something up, you're lifting it up, you're always exhaling through that movement. Or if you're doing a push-up, you come down, you always want to exhale as you push. So it's always the working or the hardest part of the movement that we want to make sure we're exhaling through. What I want us to avoid is really breath holding and bearing down. What that really feels like is you may be pushing air against the abdominal wall, or you may be pushing air down against the pelvic floor, and you feel some pressure in those areas. We really want to avoid that. And if we can breathe through these movements, then we will avoid placing added stress through our intra-abdominal pressure on those already stressed muscle systems, okay? So what that means is we're going to practice. We're going to do some simple body weight squats, and especially since I'm not with you, form is not going to be key here. You can even shorten the range of motion if you need, not go all the way down. You can just kind of have your knees bend, your hips go back a little bit, but what we want to do is just practice what it's like to breathe at certain points of the movement. So we're going to do about 5 squats, and what I want you to do is inhale, relax on the way down, and then exhale out of the bottom on the way up. And when you exhale, remember, belly button is pulling in and up, and pelvic floor is lifting, even when you're moving. Okay, so we're going to do that right now. So 5 squats, inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. So that may have felt a little counterintuitive to you, especially pulling in and exhaling on the way up. Sometimes people find that they actually maybe inhale at certain parts usually, or they hold their breath. We really want to learn to breathe through our movements, especially in this chapter. So I want you to practice that a few more times of squatting, just always exhaling through the movement. Some women say that it feels a little bit more secure. Maybe they usually have just some pressure or pain in their vagina, or even leaking. And it's, first of all, if you're experiencing any of those things, want you to talk to me about it, want to make sure that we know, and we don't want to push through that. But also sometimes doing this and breathing this way and engaging and relaxing the core and the pelvic floor muscles in this way can really help a lot of those issues. So now we're going to practice actually 3 different strategies to use. We're always exhaling through the exertion. That's always like a basic foundational thing that we're going to do. We're never going to not exhale through the exertion portion, okay? But we have 3 different ways that we can do it, and I want you guys to practice with me all 3 of these and see what feels good for you. Also, it may change during different movements. Like one strategy may feel really good in a squat, while another may feel really good in a push-up or a deadlift, and it's okay. You can kind of adjust these strategies based on different movements and what feels right for you. Okay, so the first strategy we're going to use is the one we already did. It's just a basic inhale on the way down, exhale up. We're going to do that a few times with the squat. So right here, we're going to take a big inhale and relax on the way down. Exhale on the way up. We're going to do that 3 more times. Really basic, Really simple, we already went over that. Okay, now this one is a little bit different. You're gonna take a big inhale before, and then you're actually gonna exhale down and up all the way through the movement. This is a really good one to use if you're doing faster repetitions. So on a squat, you'll probably go faster because you will wanna exhale through the entire movement. So we're gonna try that one. Okay, so we take a big inhale, then we start to exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So that's another one to try that may feel good for you. I don't know. Then the last one we're gonna do is what I call blow before you go. So we're still gonna inhale on the way down, but then we're gonna start to exhale in the bottom and then continue to exhale all the way through. So it's a little bit different than the first one in that we start the exhale a little early. So we're in the bottom, we're already pulling in the pelvic floor and the transverse abdominis, and then we continue it and come up. So it's just a little bit different, but we're gonna work on that right now. Okay, so we inhale down, exhale, inhale down, start to exhale. For some people, that little early contraction in the bottom just feels more secure. It can prevent a lot of leaking, prevent a lot of bulging or bearing down type movements, and it helps them really exhale through that movement. So that may really work for you depending on the movement and depending on your tendency. All three are things that we're going to try that I want you to try as we go through this class.